I never imagined that I would find myself in this predicament. Yet here I am, sitting in our vacant master bedroom, gazing at his closet side. The hangers continue to wobble a little. James, 38, and I have been married for 4 years. My name is Savannah, and I am 29 years old. I suppose I should state that James and I were wed. In hindsight, I may have exerted too much pressure. But really, what else are you to do when you're married to someone who seldom ever has ambition or drive? While completing my MBA, I got to know James. He had already made a name for himself as an environmental engineer, and I believed I had met someone steady who shared my enthusiasm. However, people do change, don't they? Or perhaps they simply display their actual selves. The breaking point was more comparable to death by 1,000 wounds than a major altercation or controversy. It accumulated each time I returned home, from my consulting job to discover him happy with his 9-to-5 schedule. Each time he declined a promotion because he was happy in his current role, and each time he preferred to spend time in his garden over networking with me at industry events. I was given a career-making project at work last month, the kind that makes the management team take note. I demonstrated my abilities by working late into the night to coordinate with clients from abroad. James, too? He just proposed that we go to see his parents for the weekend, or asked if I wanted to watch some dumb TV with him. He seemed incapable of reading the room. I made an effort to convey to him the significance of this for us. A companion track position can result from this. He would give me this expression as if I were speaking a foreign language when I told him that we could finally afford that house in Brighton Hills. He would add, "We're doing fine, Sav. Perhaps we ought to concentrate on appreciating what we have." Appreciating what we have? While my coworker Rachel recently moved into a lakefront home, we were living in a respectable but utterly ordinary community. Her husband made the right decision. In the last 2 years, he has changed employment 3 times, each time taking advantage of a better offer. James, meanwhile, took pride in working for the same employer for 10 years. 2 weeks ago, things reached a breaking point. James wasn't there to encourage me after I concluded a very important presentation. He was at a community garden meeting. I lost it when he got home with dirt still beneath his fingernails. I explained how his lack of drive was preventing us from moving forward and how embarrassing it was to have a husband who was happy with mediocrity while everyone else was achieving their goals. I warned him, "You're wasting your potential." When my husband would prefer to play in the dirt than further his career, you can see how that appears. He attempted to make the case that life was about more than just moving up the corporate ladder, and that he was pleased with his work-life balance. I thought I married someone with drive, not someone who peaked in their 30s. Equilibrium? More like settling. I was unable to stop myself. I had been suppressing it, and now it simply poured out. I screamed, "You're failing me. You're failing us. Even though you are meant to be my partner, you are a failure as a husband and dead weight who can't even match his wife's drive. Thank goodness we don't have children yet, since you would fail as a parent as well, telling them that being ordinary is acceptable." I thought he would fight back, that he would be passionate about something. Rather, he simply became very silent. He spent the entire night in his study. The days that followed were tense. He went to work, returned home, and hardly spoke. I assumed he was taking in what I had said, perhaps at last recognizing he needed to take charge. Then yesterday, I arrived home from work late once more. It was a different house. I was initially unable to identify it. Then I saw that his keys were missing from the bowl at the door and that his laptop had vanished from the kitchen counter. Half the hangers were empty and the closet door was open when I walked upstairs. No email, text, or note, just gone. Since last night, I've called him 20 times, each time going directly to voicemail. The only thing his best friend will tell me is that James is safe. Secure? How about me? What about our shared life? He should confront this head-on, but how dare he just walk away? My mother advises me to give him some space because guys require time to think things through. What is the process? The reality? While he has been happy to coast, I have been the one to continue this relationship. I'm the one who needs time to think. I can't take my eyes off the wedding pictures hanging on the wall. We appeared so promising and flawless. At what point did he decide to give up trying? How did he get so Comfortable? Once more, my phone is vibrating. It's most likely Rachel checking in. Since I told her what had happened, she has been texting constantly. I should respond, but I just need to think of what to do now, because our narrative isn't meant to finish like this. 3 days have passed since my last post, and things have gotten even more confusing. At last, James consented to meet me at Riverside Park, which he referred to as neutral ground, as if we were rival armies rather than husband and wife. With all the reasons why he was overreacting to what was really an open discussion about our future, I arrived early, dressed in the blue dress he usually adored. I saw him wearing that worn Stanford engineering hoodie he won't part with, sitting on a bench by the lake. He appeared worn out and older in some way, yet he had shaven and his hair was cut nicely. I wanted to run up to him, give him a hug, and tell him to go home so that we could put this whole affair behind us. However, another part of me recalled how he simply left, how he had given up on our marriage rather than taking charge. When I sat down, he observed, "You look well," as if we were random acquaintances who happened to cross paths at Whole Foods. I expected him to elaborate or offer an apology for being missing, but all he did was sit and observe the ducks. At a dozen last, the silence became unbearable to me. "That's it then? You won't even give a reason for your departure?" His eyes were far away, as if he were staring at a complete stranger, when he turned to face me. "Sav, I believe your explanation was rather clear. I'm dead weight, a failure, and unfit to be your husband or possible father." I was angry. "You know how intense such projects can be," I remarked. "All I wanted was for you to realize how critical this is to our future." "Our future," he said again, gradually. "You know, I've been giving what you said about my ambitions and career options a lot of thought." He moved on the bench and looked directly at me. "Have you ever thought that perhaps I'm right where I should be?" I could feel that old frustration rising. "How are you able to say that?" "If you—" he interrupted. "Just let me finish." His tone, stern but not furious. "You could be making twice what you make now. I've been creating environmentally friendly water treatment systems for the past 10 years. Communities in dire need of clean water have benefited from my efforts. My team's Honduran project was authorized for expansion last month. It's important, even though it's not ostentatious and won't get me invited to charity galas. I tried to emphasize that your work is vital. But you could be doing so much more, including managing larger teams and directing more ambitious initiatives." "That's just it, Savannah. I don't want to manage larger teams. I don't want to spend my days in strategy meetings and budget reviews. I want to be hands-on, doing the actual work. And yes, I love my community garden because it keeps me connected to the real world outside of spreadsheets and PowerPoints. But we could have so much more," I replied. "We don't need a house in Brighton Hills," he said abruptly, drawing the attention of a passing jogger. He spoke more softly. "Our home is doing great. We have wonderful neighbors. It's convenient to both of our work, and there's plenty of room for 2 people. How did having plenty turn into such a negative thing?" Tears threatened to well up in my eyes. "Are you simply abandoning us and all of our plans?" With a groan, he combed through his hair. "Sav, the plans are always shifting. We discussed starting a family after we were married. Instead, by now, whenever I bring it up, you have a new objective for us to achieve first. A new job to pursue. A new home to save for. When is enough enough? Oh, so my ambition is to blame for this, because I want us to be as successful as we can be? You see, our potential is back. You use that word repeatedly, but only in the sense that you define success." He took out his phone and displayed a picture of himself with a bunch of children, all of whom were grinning broadly and wearing garden gloves. Prior to our garden initiative, these community-centered children had never seen a tomato plant. They are now learning about sustainability and cultivating their own food. To me, that is success. That has promise. We seem to be speaking different languages, in my opinion. Really, James, that's beautiful, but we can't rely on tomato plants and happy memories to shape our future. In fact, can I earn 6 figures? Performing work that I'm passionate about. We have a lovely house, a large retirement fund, and no debt other than the mortgage. But you don't care about all of that because Rachel's husband recently purchased a home on the lake, don't you? I winced. It's unfair. No, having a partner that bases your value on your LinkedIn profile is unfair. Pushing his hands into his pockets, he got to his feet. Savannah, you have my undying love. I haven't recognized you since the day we first met. The woman I married had compassion in addition to ambition. She realized that wealth and prestige aren't the only factors in success. The spouse of yours grew up. She came to the realization that you had to keep moving forward in the real world, or you risked falling behind. Who is left behind? Your coworkers? The neighbors? At what point did their views become more important than your personal happiness or our happiness? My voice shook as I stood there, too hurt and angry. Now what? I want more for us, so you're just going to ruin our marriage? No, he muttered. You can't see that we already have plenty, so I'm taking a step back, because you would sooner destroy me than acknowledge that my dreams vary from yours. He turned back as he started to leave. Are you aware of the irony? You are the one person I am most proud of. You are incredibly intelligent, driven, and capable of making things happen. All I want is for you to feel proud of me as well. Hold on, James. However, he had already started to go, leaving me by myself with the ducks and a void in my chest that seemed worse than when he had initially gone. Tears were streaming down my meticulously applied makeup as I slid back onto the bench. Rachel asked if I wanted to join her for wine and female conversation when my phone chimed. I chose to disregard it. When James showed me that picture of the garden kids, all I could think about was his face. How long had it been since I'd seen him so excited about anything? How recently had I even inquired? I will not allow him to turn this around on me. The person who left is not me. I'm not the type to be content with simply existing. This must not be all there is to life. Being satisfied with enough must not be enough. After another week, I've made a huge mistake, the kind of mistake that makes all of our earlier issues seem insignificant. I have to get this out somewhere, yet I can hardly write it without being nauseous. I poured myself into my work even more after that park incident, sitting at the office until midnight and making early morning calls to clients in other countries. Anything to keep our house from being empty. Last Friday, Rachel persuaded me to join her and a few coworkers for happy hour, which helped me finally shake off my funk. The idea of spending another night by myself with my thoughts was worse than the fact that I didn't even want to go. James always said that the new rooftop bar downtown was trying too hard to seem classy, so we headed there. I suppose he was also correct about it. Everything about it said, "Look how successful we are," from the expansive city vistas to the martini glasses with gold rims. Rachel insisted that I must remember my value while she ordered rounds of pricey champagne. After drinking her third glass, she asked, "You know what your problem is?" I recall becoming upset when someone said, "You married too young, you hadn't even figured out your full potential yet." The fault is not with me, but with James, who what? Has values? Hurry up. The individual genuinely contributes to the provision of clean water in underprivileged areas. He's like a walking NGO commercial. But that doesn't pay for vacation homes or designer bags. She rolled her eyes. I felt uneasy with the way she said it for some reason. How shallow it sounded. She then brought me to meet Blake, a hedge fund manager friend of hers who was in town for a conference. He had a smart suit, a high-end watch, and was already discussing his next real estate investment. He was everything James wasn't. The champagne continued to flow, and I kept getting pulled into his talk. I was aware of its direction. I was aware that Blake was on his way to my place at the time and offered to share his Uber back to his hotel. When I failed to correct him, I knew it. A voice in my head kept telling me to stop, but there was also a voice that kept saying that perhaps this was what I needed, someone who understood ambition and wouldn't make me feel terrible for wanting more. My stomach was in knots and my head was throbbing when I woke up at 4 a.m. in his hotel room. The sound of his Rolex ticking on the nightstand was so loud that it seemed to be inside my skull. Feeling like the biggest cliché in the world, I ordered my own Uber and got dressed in the dark. The worst thing? Blake awakened and said something about getting breakfast during the little time I was waiting for my vehicle, as if this were commonplace and I were just another Driven lady enjoying a wonderful night out. Right there, I almost puked. The ride home was filled with waves of shame, but it was about everything, not only Blake. God, that was awful enough. I recalled how James's entire face brightened when he showed me the picture of the children in his garden program. When was the last time I had such unadulterated happiness over anything? Suddenly, even my major project at work, the one I had been obsessing over, seemed pointless. Since then, I have been ignoring James's texts and phone calls. He has been attempting to schedule another meeting to discuss the situation, stating that he believes we can resolve it if both of us are prepared to pay close attention. What should I do with him now? Knowing what I've done, how can I sit across from him and gaze into those sincere eyes? I was having lunch yesterday when I drove by his office building. I caught him chuckling about something as he left with a few coworkers. He didn't look very good, but he looked all right. Even though he was sporting that shabby Stanford sweatshirt once more, I wasn't as annoyed by it as I once was. Rather, I recalled how I used to steal and how it smelled like his body wash and garden soil. It happens on chilly mornings. I should live my truth and not feel guilty about considering my options, Rachel continues telling me in her texts. She doesn't understand. This is about my destroying something real because I was blind to what was in front of me, not about considering other possibilities. However, despite my current feelings of remorse and disgust, there is still a part of me that believes I wasn't totally mistaken about everything. I did a terrible job of handling it. Yes, I cannot be forgiven for what I did to Blake. But is wanting more from life really that wrong? To have everything instead of settling for anything less? This morning, James texted once again. This weekend is when he wants to meet. He claims to have given our future a lot of thought and to have some suggestions for how we might work out our disagreements. In fact, when I read that, my heart briefly stopped. I have this secret that would ruin any hope of reconciliation, and he's working so hard to mend us. I ought to inform him. I should, I know. I can't breathe, though, every time I imagine the expression on his face when he discovers what I've done. I sit here in our house, or rather my house today, surrounded by all these things that I felt were so important. The framed magazine article about the success of my firm, the large TV I insisted we required, and the designer furniture James believed was unneeded. Now none of it seems sufficient. Perhaps, however, that has always been the issue. I've never felt like I had enough, and now I could have shattered the one thing that I did. Yesterday, the meeting I've been dreading finally took place. James proposed that we meet at our place, not mine. He made a point of it. I tried to make everything perfect throughout the morning, as if his favorite snacks and the perfect coffee would somehow make up for everything I had done. Naturally, he arrived on schedule. Reliability, the same trait I used to deride as uninteresting, was always his thing. But he appeared different, more determined. He was dressed in a fresh blue button-down instead of his typical casual attire, as if he had gotten a haircut. When I realized that this would not be the reconciliation I had hoped for, my stomach fell. After we were comfortable in the living room, he remarked, "I've been seeing a therapist. No warm-up, no small talk." I was going to object when he held up his hand and said, "She's helped me understand some things about us, about myself, about why I've been feeling so diminished in our marriage. Let me finish, please. I must say this." He inhaled deeply. "Savannah, I love what I do. I enjoy seeing the genuine impact my work has on people's lives. Yes, I enjoy that I can leave work at 5 o'clock and still have time to live my life. And I adore my community garden program. It's selecting a different form of achievement, not a lack of ambition. As I mentioned in a hushed voice, I have also been considering that. Have you? Because this is my opinion." Your eyes were piercing as you leaned forward. "I believe you've lost the ability to simply be joyful because you're so afraid of not being exceptional. Everything must be greater, better, and more striking. But Sav, when will it be enough? When will you be able to take a moment to appreciate what you have created?" I was being choked by guilt. I had to inform him, "James, there's something I saw you, Savannah. 4 words, 4 simple words that made my world stop spinning. Last Friday, I was picking up takeout downtown when I saw you getting into that Uber. I saw who you were with. The room started spinning. James, I don't. His tone cracked. Just don't. You know what's funny? I came by that night to surprise you. I had this whole speech planned about how we could compromise. Maybe I could take on more responsibility at work, and you could scale back just a little and find a balance. I even bought your favorite gelato. He laughed, but the sound was off. When you didn't return home, I contacted hospitals and waited for hours, certain that something horrible had occurred. Now I was crying uncontrollably, ugly tears. It had no significance. I was unhappy, intoxicated, and, what? Searching for a more driven individual? His voice sounded like a slap due to its venom. You know what real ambition is, Savannah? It's working on something you believe in even when it's not flashy. It's choosing to be kind when it's easier to be cruel. It's building a marriage based on trust and respect, not competition and status. I know I messed up, I said quietly. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, take some time. He stood up, and I noticed that he wasn't wearing his wedding band. We can't fix this because you still don't get it. You're not sorry about what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry because this makes you look bad. Even now, you're probably wondering what people will say when they find out. He wasn't entirely incorrect. A part of me was already afraid of the office whispers, the gossip, the criticism, and Rachel's phony pity. Saying in a low voice, I filed for divorce last week. The papers are being delivered tomorrow. I'm not doing this to punish you, Sav. I'm doing it because we want fundamentally different things from life, and neither of us should have to change who we are to make this work. But I love you, I shouted, resenting the size of my voice. He went to the door and turned around, saying, Maybe you do, but you love your idea of success more. You know what the saddest part is? You're already successful. You have a great career, a beautiful home, and respect in your field, but you'll never see it because you're too busy looking at what everyone else has. That was the last time I believed that was the end of it. I sat there for hours, surrounded by all the pricey stuff I'd insisted we needed. The designer lamp that cost more, James's whole budget for the garden program, the framed accomplishments on the walls, and the smart home equipment he said was superfluous. Rachel must have wanted to know how it went since my phone kept buzzing. For the first time in years, I switched it off. I sat quietly and took a close look at my life. I disregarded it as settling for less when I remembered James's expression when he spoke about his water treatment projects, the children in his garden program, and all the times he tried to express his happiness to me. This morning, the divorce. Documents arrived. James was meticulous. All he is requesting are his own items and gardening supplies. He even left me the house of which I was so proud, but now that I'm sitting here, it feels more like a monument to all of my mistakes than a win. I can't get his statement about being happy versus being special out of my head. When did I determine they couldn't be the same thing? When did I begin using other people's criteria rather than my own to determine success? I have no idea what will happen next. My major project at work no longer seems to be that important. Calls from Rachel end up in voicemail. The mansion seems excessively large, vacant, and overwhelming. Perhaps James was correct. Perhaps I never mastered the art of contentment. However, I'm beginning to believe that's something I should study. For me, not for him, that's too late. Because I have a lot of expensive stuff and no one to share it with because of all my ambition and drive for more. I told him he was a bad father and spouse. As it happens, I was the one who failed at being a good wife, being truthful, and understanding what matters most. And now I'm on my own, trying to put the pieces of a life I destroyed back together.